Yesterday, ex-Marine Daniel Penny was acquitted on all charges in the chokehold death of homeless, mentally ill man named Jordan Neely.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today, I thought we'd explore an event that has resonated throughout the nation, stirring a maelstrom of debates about justice, heroism, and the intricate dance between intervention and tragedy. I speak of the Daniel Penny case, which began on an ordinary afternoon on May 1st, 2023, but unfolded into an extraordinary narrative, challenging our understanding of bravery, responsibility, and a thin line between heroism and catastrophe. Now, I'm going to try to be as fair and objective as possible. That doesn't mean I'll be objectively objective, though. I am still a human being, but I'll try. Let's delve into the specifics of what transpired that day, setting the stage for the events that followed. On that particular afternoon, Daniel Penny, a 26-year-old former U.S. Marine, was commuting on an uptown F train in Manhattan. He was coming from class, heading to the gym, a routine part of his day that would soon veer into the unpredictable. At the 2nd Avenue station, Jordan Neely, a 30-year-old man known for his Michael Jackson impersonations in Times Square, boarded the same train. Neely, however, was not in his performance mode that day. Instead, he was in a state of apparent distress, exacerbated by his long-standing struggles with homelessness, mental illness, and substance abuse. Witnesses described Neely's behavior as erratic and threatening. He threw his jacket on the floor, an act that could be seen both as a sign of agitation and an attempt to get attention. He began shouting, not just about his immediate need for money, but also about his desperation, proclaiming, "I'm fed up. I don't mind going to jail and getting life in prison. I'm ready to die." This was no ordinary outburst. It was laced with threats that alarmed the passengers. Some even reported Neely saying he was willing to kill, which heightened the sense of danger within the confined space of the subway car. The atmosphere was tense. Passengers, including a woman with a stroller, felt threatened. The fear was palpable. In this charged environment, Daniel Penny decided to act. His military training included techniques for subduing individuals without causing fatal harm, and he chose to employ a chokehold, a maneuver intended to control rather than injure. Penny approached Neely from behind, enveloping him in this hold, bringing him down to the subway floor with the help of 2 other passengers. The chokehold was maintained for approximately 6 minutes, a duration that would become central to the legal and moral debate surrounding this case. Bystander video captured much of this encounter, showing Penny with his arm around Neely's neck, the other arm on top of his head attempting to restrain him. During this time, Neely struggled, flailed, and at one point tapped the other passenger's leg, perhaps in a plea for help. The train stopped at the Broadway Lafayette Street station, but Penny did not immediately release Neely. Some passengers exited, while others watched, some in relief at the intervention, others in concern at the ongoing restraint. It was when Neely became unresponsive that the gravity of the situation became clear. Penny let go, and despite attempts by arriving police to resuscitate Neely with CPR, Narcan, and a portable defibrillator, he was pronounced dead at the scene. The medical examiner later ruled Neely's death a homicide, resulting from compression of the neck, though his system contained synthetic marijuana, K2, which could have influenced his behavior and the psychological response to the restraint. Daniel Penny was cooperative with the police, giving an interview at the precinct where he expressed his intentions were to protect fellow passengers. "I wasn't trying to injure him," he stated. "I'm just trying to keep him from hurting anyone else. He was threatening." His actions, while intended as protective, led to a tragic outcome, and thus began his journey through the legal system. Penny was charged with second-degree manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide. His case became a touchstone for discussions on racial justice, the role of civilians in public safety, mental health crises, and the ethics of physical intervention. The trial that followed was a microcosm of these larger debates. The trial and the public reaction. Over a month-long trial, the prosecution argued that Penny's actions, though perhaps initially justified due to the threat Neely posed, went beyond what was necessary, recklessly causing Neely's death by continuing the chokehold even after the immediate danger seemed to have subsided. They painted a picture of excess, where Penny ignored pleas from the other passengers to release Neely and continued to hold post-threat. Video evidence was pivotal, and expert testimony was brought in to discuss how long it would take for someone to lose consciousness or die from a chokehold, adding layers to the narrative of responsibility. On the other hand, Penny's defense team emphasized the chaotic and unpredictable nature of the incident, focusing on Neely's threats, his criminal history, which included 44 arrests, and his mental state. They portrayed Penny as someone who acted to prevent harm, not out of malice, but out of a heroic impulse to safeguard others. They brought in character witnesses from Penny's military service, medical experts to discuss the complexities of Neely's death, and highlighted the fear felt by other passengers. The jury, after 20 hours of deliberations across several days, could not reach a unanimous decision on the charge of manslaughter. The deadlock led to the charge being dismissed, and they were left to consider the lesser charge of criminally negligent homicide. On December 9, 2024, they returned a not guilty verdict on this charge as well, recognizing the complexity of the situation and Penny's lack of criminal intent. Why was Daniel Penny seen as a hero? And why do I call Penny a hero? Heroism isn't about perfection. It's about action in the face of danger, about choosing to step into the fray when others might step back. Penny, trained to serve and protect, did what he believed was necessary to ensure the safety of those around him. His military background equipped him with skills intended for such high-stress scenarios, though tragically the outcome was not what anyone would have hoped for. Courage in crisis. Penny's decision to intervene was not made in a vacuum of safety, but in the midst of clear and present danger. He chose the path of action over inaction, embodying the Marine Corps ethos of honor, courage, and commitment. His training was not just physical, but also in decision-making under stress, where seconds can mean the difference between safety and catastrophe. Intention versus outcome. While the outcome was tragic, Penny's intent was to de-escalate and protect, not harm. This intent was corroborated by his cooperation with the police, staying at the scene, and his initial statements where he expressed no wish to injure but to subdue Neely. In legal terms, intent matters greatly, and Penny's actions, though leading to an unfortunate end, were not driven by malice. The moral dilemma of intervention. Penny's case brings into sharp focus the moral quandary of civilian intervention in public spaces. We as a society often call for bystanders to act when witnessing wrongdoing, yet when someone does act, they can face severe repercussions. Penny's case is a stark reminder of this conundrum. His bravery to act where others might have hesitated should be recognized, even as we grapple with the consequences of such action. Systemic failures. We must also acknowledge the systemic failures that set the stage for this tragedy. Neely was a man whose cries for help were heard too late, if at all. His life was marked by trauma, the murder of his mother when he was just 14, subsequent mental health issues, and the revolving door of homelessness, drug abuse, and criminal activity. This case underscores the need for better mental health support and intervention. Penny's actions, in one light, reflects a society's failure to adequately care for its mentally ill. The broader implications. This case does not just tell the story of two individuals, but reflects broader societal issues. Mental health. Neely's case is a glaring example of how mental health crises are often mishandled in public settings. There is a pressing need for trained officers rather than leaving it up to civilians in an already charged situation. Furthermore, what Neely needed was food, shelter, and treatment. Ironically, a mental institution would have provided all of those things. Training for civilians. And when I say training, I don't mean to send them to school or anything. But if we expect or even encourage public intervention, there must be better resources available to the public on de-escalation, understanding mental health crises, and the legal ramifications of physical intervention. The most important question is perhaps, do we or do we not want civilians to intervene? I say yes, but what do others think? Which leads to the next point: public safety and responsibility. The incident raises questions about how we as a community can better support each other in emergencies. It's about creating systems where actions like Penny's, aimed at protection, do not end in tragedy. Justice and accountability. The legal process in Penny's case highlights the complexity of justice when intent and outcome diverge so starkly. It forces us to consider how we balance accountability with the recognition of good intentions in a crisis situation. In calling Penny a hero, we recognize his courage to act when others might not have. We acknowledge the inherent risk he took, not just to his physical safety, but to his freedom and future. His willingness to remain at the scene, to be transparent with law enforcement, reflects not the behavior of someone intent on harm, but of someone who is trying to navigate a crisis with the tools at his disposal. The narrative of Daniel Penny is not one of simple heroism, but of human action in complex, chaotic circumstances. It's a call to action for systemic change, for better training for citizens in de-escalation, for a reevaluation of how we manage mental health crises in public spaces, and for a society that recognizes the bravery of those who act, even when the outcome is tragic. In closing, let's remember both lives involved and the lessons learned. Let's respect Neely by advocating for the change that might have saved his life. It certainly seems like there's a mental health emergency in this country, and at the same time, mental hospitals are fewer than ever. That should change. And let's respect Penny and his actions by understanding the weight of what it means to intervene. In this story of tragedy and bravery, there are no winners, but there is a man who tried to do the right thing. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for watching and see you next time.